Hello everybody, today I'm going to be reviewing Moonlight. This is written and directed by Jenkins. Jenkins actually based the film on a play that he had seen that was called In Moonlight Black Boys Turn Blue. Jenkins was so struck by the play and also the playwright himself. Both of them have very similar backgrounds. They both grew up in Miami, and a lot of the situations really resonated with him. And the result is this magnificent, very sensory, poetic work that I think depicts the minority experience so beautifully and so authentically. I really do think that this film has the kind of artistic presence that can resonate with anyone and everyone, and I think it really does have a certain kind of raw power. I walked into this movie knowing almost nothing about it. Really, all I had seen was a poster and just a brief premise, and I think the less you know about the film, the better in terms of when you're just going in to watch it. But I mean, when I talk about the premise, I'm sure you're probably going to roll your eyes because it does have a lot of what may seem like cliches and things that we've seen over and over and over again. It is a coming-of-age story. It has that typical setup, character setup and plot setup that does seem very much like Oscar bait or something of that nature, but it's presented in a way that is so unique to the filmmaker and in a way that I don't think we've ever seen before. It's actually kind of similar to Boyhood and Tree of Life in a lot of ways, maybe more similar to Boyhood, but it is in the sense that it is about a young boy going from childhood to adulthood. And in this particular film, it's told in 3 parts. And honestly, each part could stand on its own as some great kind of short film, but when you add them all together, that's when it really has a lot of gravitas. In this case, the film is about an African-American male named Chiron, and it's basically just about him trying to find himself, him struggling with his identity, his sexuality, the persona that maybe he wants to wear for the rest of his life. And all of this is happening, of course, while life throws all kinds of different obstacles at him. Chiron is a very awkward, very taciturn kind of boy, always feeling like he doesn't fit in, like he can't express himself. And where you might think the film is starting to veer into cliche territory, it actually doesn't, but it may seem like it because he does have a drug-addicted mother. He is taken under the wing of a drug dealer who becomes kind of his father figure. There is the school bully. So when you see all of that, you may kind of have an eye roll or two. But this film, even though it does employ those ideas and those concepts that we're used to, it does it in a way that feels like it's very complex and like it all is serving the layers of the story. The main ensemble of characters is very well defined, I think, and all of this is done with very minimal dialogue. But where in cliches you might see the drug-addicted mother or the bully being kind of negative stereotypes in film, in this case I feel that they offer that complexity because each time something happens to the character of Chiron, it always muddles the waters. It's never good or bad. It's kind of a mix of the two because everything in life is messy. And I feel like in certain scenes of the film, for sure, the film is kind of saying that whatever beats you down, whether it's figuratively or literally in this case, good can come out of it. It can help you evolve and make you stronger and help you navigate life maybe a little bit better. But at the same time, when good things happen and good people come into your life, sometimes that can lead to negativity, that can lead to betrayal, or it can hurt you in some sort of way. So there are pros and cons to everything. Where I make the connection with Tree of Life is more in the visual style of it, because I think they're similarly abstract, especially at the beginning of the film. In this movie, you feel like through the camera work, it's like you, along with Chiron, are discovering the world. The cinematography in the beginning feels very physical. It feels very disorienting, and there are parts of it that are kind of out of focus, and that to me kind of reflects what it's like being a child, that vigor, that confusion, and that need for self-discovery. But as the film goes along, it starts to kind of settle into itself a little bit more and become more kind of soft and subtle. And it's as if Chiron has finally learned how to deal with the world and how to make his way in a way that keeps him semi in control. He may not necessarily completely understand the world, but who does? But he's learned how to kind of defend himself and build these hard calluses. And nothing in terms of the aesthetic of the film feels gimmicky. I mean, when you look at the cinematography or the lighting, all of it feels completely authentic and essential to the moment because it's not trying to reflect reality necessarily, but rather it's trying to capture emotion. And the score is also amazing. And I can't even remember the last time that I actually took note of a score and mentioned it on a YouTube video because it's so rare in this day and age. But it's very simple and very pure because it's, you know, for the most part, it's kind of the main theme is a simple melody, but I love the kind of wispy, airy feel to the strings because it seems almost like, in the beginning of the film at least, it seems like a bird is kind of just starting to learn how to fly. It's fluttering its wings, almost like it's testing the waters. And all of these different elements come together in what feels like this symphony of artistry, basically, in depicting an unlikely protagonist. Because first of all, we rarely see an African American at the forefront of the film, so that in itself is wonderful to see. But it's also just the fact that he isn't used in a stereotypical way. But what really resonated with me, and I think what's going to resonate with most people, is the way that you see this character evolution. That his need for human connection and love, vulnerability, is so achingly present, yet society slowly chips away at that beauty, that innocence that we have when we're children, until it's almost lost, but it's not. It's always there. Like in Chiron's case, and in the case of so many men, I mean, when he's a young boy, he's taught to be this kind of masculine, idealized man. He's taught to walk it off, not to show emotion. And that's just not who he is. He's seen as weak because he wants to cry when everybody else says that that's not a good thing. And he also wants to express himself sexually in a lot of ways, or at least he has sexual confliction for sure, but in the society in which he lives, he just doesn't know how to do that. In part one of the film, there's a line by one of the characters where he tells Chiron that you have, basically, I don't remember exactly what the line is, but you have to decide for yourself who you want to be. No one else can decide that for you. And that's a line that in movies and in life you do hear a lot. But I think that the film itself is trying to say that, no, you don't just decide who you want to be. We are so heavily influenced by our surroundings, by the people in our world. We often become what we know, whether we want to or not. And yet, when we become adults, we start to kind of find that truth beneath the exterior, and we start to want to strip away all of that kind of those hardened calluses that we've built up as children, because that's who we are inherently. And I think that's what Chiron tries to do, especially in the third part of the film. There's a quote by Roger Ebert that I know I've mentioned several times, and I definitely overuse it, but I think that it fits this film so perfectly. And I kept thinking about it as I was watching the movie, and he said something along the lines of, art is the only way in which you can really, truly understand what a stranger really feels. And I think that just makes so much sense in the context of this film. So even if you work on Wall Street and make 6 figures a year or something, you can watch this movie and completely understand this young African American man, because you too have become a product of your society, and yet also like Chiron, you have that need to be vulnerable and to be true to yourself despite all of those layers that you've built over the years. Every once in a while a movie comes around that really does move me in a way that I can't stop thinking about it, and I feel like in a way it really dug deep, and I felt it much more than I feel most things. Boyhood was one of those, and Tree of Life was one of those, and this film did just that. I think everybody has to see it. It is just a masterful creation. And that is my review. Thank you all for listening. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, the link is below. And you can also like my Facebook page and the link below that. Catch you next time.